Welcome to Stu and the Nunn, an online show and podcast focused on national security, policy, politics, and selfless service. We are here to give you an honest opinion, a different perspective, and hopefully a few laughs. We do this by not only interviewing guests, but also sharing our own perspectives and asking you, the listener, to interact with us on our show chat room via our Facebook page and on Twitter.
When the light goes green, best believe I'm in the zone to be. From a yin to my yang to see. Put a grin on my chin when you come to me, cause I'll win, I'm a one of a kind, and I'll bring death to the place you're about to be. Another river of blood running under my feet. Forged in a fire lit long ago. Stand next to me, you'll never stand alone. I'm last to leave, but the first to go. Lord, make me dead before you make me whole. I feed on the fear of the devil inside of the enemy faces in my sight. Aim with a hand, shoot with a mind, kill with a heart like Arctic ice. I am a soldier and I'm marching on. I am a soldier and I'm marching on. I am a warrior, this is my song. I am a warrior and this is my song. I bask in the glow of the rising war, lay waste to the ground of an enemy shore. Wade through the blood spilled on the floor, and if another one stands, I'll kill some more.
And we have a full studio audience tonight, welcoming our awesome return guest, past guest host, and third appearance here in 2021. He is Mr. Popular, kicks our ratings up. The ladies love him. Mr. John Wolf Wagner joining Toby and I tonight. How you doing, Wolf? How's it going, buddy?
Hey, good evening, guys. Glad to be on. Always enjoy a good time on here.
Here we go. How you doing, Toby?
Well, in your honor, we played the Warrior song.
Yes.
I was wondering if you've been keeping that one up on all the shows, or is that just my entry music now?
It's mainly your entry music. It has made some appearances without you.
Yes.
But that's because Troy has failed to get Crazy Town Butterfly in rotation.
I played that. You weren't here when I played it for the Shard.
And then it didn't count.
Yes. He was the guest host. Doug was the guest host, so I played that as his walk-on music for him. But, yes, I have played it. Our producer keeps complaining about YouTube and Facebook copyright shutting us down and hitting us when I play music that they apparently think is copyrighted, owned by somebody else. So I got to keep them thrown off on the algorithms, and I slipped this in because this is kind of become our de facto.
Well, and we do have permission to play
permission.
this, so
that's right.
We're good to go there.
You heard it.
Got
here.
the emails. I found the emails before the last time it came out, so I have them.
Yep.
So, yeah. The good news is, Facebook, they're like the opposite of the Bill of Rights, so like
The Bill of No Rights.
They just convict you and then you mount your defense, like after you've been convicted. So they send you to jail and then you appeal. It's a great it's a great program.
It's kind of like
the
UCMJ.
Russians saw a lot of success with it. Back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s with the gulags, there's a tremendous amount of success with it.
Yeah, it's kind of like UCMJ. It is kind of guilty. You got to get yourself innocent after that.
Yeah,
right. Just saying, not slamming our military law enforcement system there.
Speaking of the Shard and our unpaid producer, I got to break bread with them today. Made sure that they both had food in their bellies.
Oh, you had lunch with both of them?
Yeah, so they won't die. They won't die. They've been fed.
Good. So. And of course, I'm supporting Shard. I've got my Gear for Grunts shirt on.
Yeah, look at that shirt. Gear for Grunts.
That's right. With my awesome VO hat and
that's right.
And a flag that I put up tonight in honor of our guest. I kind of had to hang my Trump holding his M60 with a RPG launcher on it flag up. But yes,
we'll probably get banned just for
that,
broadcasting his image.
Probably so. They'll say it's copyrighted.
Yeah.
But no, that's awesome. You had lunch with Rob and Doug today. That's phenomenal. I'm jealous.
Those fine gentlemen, they get together every couple of weeks and break bread, and it just worked out that today that I was able to break away. Almost didn't make it due to the it was raining here. And
the bike couldn't get on the road or what?
No, Texas doesn't know how to act when it rains.
Oh, I thought maybe you were on a bike and you're like, nope, not taking that.
I was in my Silverado Texas edition that is capable of all weather conditions.
I hope so.
But the peers of it on the road do not always feel prepared for all weather conditions. But let's get into it, because
let's do
it. It's been an interesting couple weeks, but we'll just start with it is. So I don't want to use the term unraveling, but I feel like that's almost appropriate. And the reason why I'm using this term is because I feel like our lives have been a bird's nest of fishing line for the past year and some change. And the reason why, like, I'm going to use the bird's nest of fishing line because I'm an outdoorsman, and I find that there's nothing more frustrating than trying to undo a bird's nest. And it's what are these? And this is an analogy for those of you that are like, slow to follow what I'm doing here. It is hard to follow and fix a bird's nest because there's no ends. There's no beginning and there's no end. All of a sudden, you're befuddled. This linear thing that you had is now non-linear, and it's been befuddled, and there's no beginning and there's no end to it. Like, there's no start and there's no finish, and you don't know how it happened. It's not like someone took two ends and started creating a knot. You just all of a sudden have this bird's nest of bullshit. And
brought to you by Veteran Outdoors, who knows all about bird nesting.
And when you're trying to undo it, it's frustrating, and your line is sinking. You got your favorite lure on there, and it's now wedged in the rocks or some tree at the bottom of some body of water, and you're scared that you're never going to get it back. There's all kinds of issues with that. You got a fish on, you can't do anything with it. There's all kinds of things that are frustrating about bird's nests in your fishing line. Our lives have been like that, but we are starting to untangle it, and we're starting to figure it out. We understand that there's a fish on the other end of this line, and we're getting it so we can manipulate the line again. We have hope that there's going to be food and nourishment because we're going to get that fish at some point. We're going to get this undone, and as we're doing it, we're starting to see the root cause of this. And man, oh man, is this coming undone. We have been given this crap ton of twists and turns of information and knots and entanglements, and it's coming down that it's all been bullshit. Like, we learned in the past couple of weeks that masks were ineffective, but yet we got kids wearing masks today in schools, if they're still in school. And it's near the end of the year, but we can't even give up on that. Like, it's already been proven that kids, the CDC are like, no, kids, they're good. They're not going to transmit this. We've already, inoculated or whatever, you can vaccinated, I think the White House said the other day we're at 63 or something % of the American population have been vaccinated. We still got kids in masks. We can't walk back some of these things. We've learned that they're completely ineffective. We've learned that everything that we've been told, oh no, this is a naturally occurring thing. All of a sudden, it's not naturally occurring. We were told, oh, I'm wearing these not one but two masks, not for theatrical purposes. Oh, I'm going to walk that back. This is all unraveling now. And so every day it's what more are we going to learn? What more are we going to learn how we've been hoodwinked, schnickerbombed,
Yeah, I mean, it's the CDC. Well, I'll start with the WHO, and then the CDC, and the scientists, and the whole follow the science. And everyone always said, that should never have been political. The virus should never have been political. This has nothing to do with politics, right? We need the facts, and up until I would say sometime in last year, if not at the start of this, but probably about the summertime last year, Americans started to think, in my opinion, and Wolf, I'd be interested to hear your opinion, started to feel that maybe these scientists aren't so trustworthy. Maybe they aren't ambiguous, or I guess ambiguous to the politics, and they're going to steer a narrative based on who they support or don't support. When people were looking for them to just give me plain facts, tell it like it is, it has nothing to do with anyone's letter after their name. I mean, what is your thoughts?
Oh, you're talking about mine?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
He's watching Grey's Anatomy right now. He's
catching up on things.
I'm trying to catch up on my person of interest series. Here's what's going on. Toby, you're right. It's unraveling. The narrative that has been built around what is going on with what they were hoping is starting to unravel, and it's starting to come apart at the seams. And it's a media narrative more than anything else. Not based on science, not based on the facts. Even an article today that came out from Vanity Fair, I think, has one of the deeper dives on this that I've seen in quite a while. And it's amazing that this would come out of Vanity Fair, of all places, to be talking about this and go into such depth around who the players were, what they were seeing, and the investigation around it. I'm glad to see that somebody's getting to the bottom of this. But even they said that the State Department they had people wanting to investigate the origins of all this, and they were warned away, saying, no, we can't go in it. You've got to stay away from this. You're going to open up a can of worms. I have to say that in March of last year, when I was with the VA initially, we had heard that term, can of worms, that if you start talking about the wrong way, or if you go off topic or something like that, you're going to be opening up a can of worms. Nobody wanted to touch it. The president was holding daily briefings. If you were, I think, 8 o'clock every evening or so, he would go on for almost 2 hours every night, at least an hour and a half. He was given the daily briefing on what they were looking for, what they were trying to determine. But the media at the other times were pushing a different narrative around. What they were, and this is what I've talked about with others today, there was never, at least in the early part, going up, let's say June, July-ish, going up from January, February up into July, there was never a coordinated effort, but there definitely was a congruent effort among the media that we have found something that's going to hit this administration finally. The guy's been Teflon. He's gone through, 2 impeachment trials. He's gone through all this other stuff. We can't get anybody to impact his armor, but we found something that's going to likely do that. And they were hitting it hard. Anything and everything that could be negative, that can be construed as negative, was going to be put out there and show that, there was something wrong with this administration. They were ineffective in any way. That's what they were going to push. And that's what we're finding out is likely the case. Every piece of email that comes out, every other story.
Yeah. And see, like, this is what's so crazy to me. And just so that there's no confusion, I'm not like, this isn't a I told you so moment. This is just me.
I'll tell you
as an observer, like saying something. Because my understanding, and you got to forgive me, Canadian school system, like infantry, knuckle dragging grunt, like you got to forgive me, with my intelligence, So when I think about scientific phenomenon, which is what a pandemic is, right? So this is a scientific phenomenon. It's something that, has arose, it's occurred, it's transmitted, it is a scientific phenomenon, right? Say we're going with like natural occurrence, hypothetically, purely hypothetically. Say we're going with that, right? Why is the reporting of that different than, say, any other scientific reporting? Because I got to tell you, there's entire channels dedicated in global media to reporting scientific phenomenon. All right, like I'm not talking Discovery Channel because that's reality TV. I'm talking about like, I don't know, like say the Weather Channel, like, just hypothetically. How is it that we can report on earthquakes? Because that's a scientific phenomenon. An earthquake hits Pakistan. It registers on a scale. All right. So we have a unit of measure. Right. So we have some empirical information that we can shed light on, or we can share. Then we have like a rubric or a metric that we can now like, report information on. And then you report the situation as it progresses. Now there's this amount of damage. The aftershocks have caused this kind of mudslide, which has affected the lives of this village, blah, blah, blah. You go on and go on.
This is what the Vanity Fair article actually delved into. They said, why are you being so dismissive that this is a possible leak and saying it only could be some kind of naturally occurring thing, and to offhand just dismiss it that there is any potential for a leak without any scientific fact or investigation into this. And that's what this is showing, is that they were being dismissive of anybody that was bringing up the remotest possibility that it was indeed a leak.
That China
or
was,
that it
that
was
China
a
was,
man-caused,
right.
or that it was a man-caused event of some kind, whether it was an accidental or deliberate, doesn't matter, that there was anything but a natural occurrence.
Right.
And they were pushing back on it.
Right. So even if it is man-caused, so let's just go down that route. There's still empirical evidence that you just share. Like you
and let people make a decision. And let people make a decision.
You report
right.
the information that you have. What is it that changed in this case? Because
Trump was president and they wanted to find a way to get a chink in the armor.
Right.
They wanted to turn this. The media is the one that politicized this disease, not the politicians.
Right. But they played into it. I mean, like,
well, the politicians saw the advantage, and we all know politicians will take any advantage.
Yeah, like we just saw. I mean, we're learning today. I can't validate the authenticity of like the emails that I've been shared with, but it looks like the people that are most familiar with this situation, and it's a small group of people, so tight-knit that they refer to each other in the first name.
Well, even I call Dr. Fauci Tony. I mean,
right. So everyone's close enough in this circle that they're referring to each other, in the on a first name basis. That they disagree with the information that's being shared.
Right. Right.
Like, to what end? Like, is it purely the hatred of Trump that has put the entire world? Now, I got to tell you, Canada's still screwed. Like, Canada today does not enjoy the liberty that you and I are enjoying right now. And they're not even allowed to talk shit about it on social media like we are right now.
No.
That's now forbidden.
And we know other countries,
you
India,
can be arrested in your home for inciting, for inciting.
Just for those that are tuning in real quick, I just want to highlight we are talking to John Wagner. John has held a number of positions. Just so if you're wondering why I recognize this guy, it's because he's been on a couple times in the last few months. But he was the associate commissioner for the U.S. FDA, right? He's also been the senior strategy advisor to the head of the assistant secretary for preparedness and response at Health and Human Services. He was very involved with Operation Warp Speed. So if you're tuning in, that's who we're talking to. So it's not just like, hey, we got a buddy of ours on here. We're talking to a gentleman who was in the inner circles and was in the know on everything over the last year up until January 20th, right? So in addition to a lot of others. And if you're wondering, where have I seen or whatever, you can definitely go back, check out episode 238, where was the first time we had him on, and then we had John on again in March as a guest host. But I just want to hit on it because so when people's like, oh, okay, they're just going to chat about something, they're pulling this out of their ass. We do our own research, right? And all of us now, thanks to the FOIA, have been exposed to tens of thousands of emails that aren't on just one topic. There's a couple, and I want to make sure we hit on these tonight. We don't have to do it right now, but there's a couple major things that came out of this release of emails. Number one, yes, there was some kind of suppression or distraction from even entertaining that this may have been leaked from the lab and not naturally caused is one big one. Another one is Fauci's own words to friends or associates about the effectiveness or ineffectiveness of the personal protective equipment, mask, and all that and distancing and all that was been pushed as official gospel for the last year, right? Is another big one, and then also the tying of the research and the funding of the research and the laboratories, right? That have come out, and there's been a number of other things that have come out recently on Fauci, old recordings, things he said in 2012, stuff like that. So there's a lot going on with this guy. That we definitely want to pack in. I just want to make sure I hit all of our viewers and listeners so we know what we're talking about. But to get back real quick, we'll get back on the topic. I think of the emails of the leak. This, I don't know how he's already got Dr. Rand Paul, real Dr. Rand Paul, on him about a lot of stuff. And a lot of things that people have said over the last year, whether it's President Trump or someone talking on Facebook that all of a sudden got shut down for spreading fake news, have all been vindicated in the fact that leading scientists, and there were other, just to clarify, and John, you probably know them better than we do, there were other people involved in Operation Warp Speed and other folks who are very smart and have high degrees that were saying, hey, this needs to be looked at. We are not ready to rule out. But they were kind of shut down, I think, right? Or just shamed not to say anything. Yeah. Sorry.
They were disparaged by the media. They were poo-pooed. They were shunned by the media in certain ways, and in some cases directly attacked in the media and defamed. I think that going forward, there may be a recourse for those people. I would not be surprised that there's not some ambulance chasing lawyers out there saying, I see a loop, I see a hole in somebody's armor here coming up. But that said, given the fact of the conversations that were going on around this as we prepped every day to face the media and try and get effective, true public health information out. The media refused, because of who we were associated with, they refused to want to listen. They would refuse to want to get out thinking, oh no, you're just going to say that because, you're helping the president. No, this is beyond that. This is above that. We're trying to stay above that kind of fray. This is true public health type information. And that's what we wanted to remain the focus on. But they didn't want to do that. They wanted to try and push the narrative toward what was best for disparaging the efficacy of what the president was trying to do. And in the end, I think it's going to be proven that his instincts were correct, that what he was and who he was listening to and who he was trying to work with in his medical advisors there at the White House, most of them were correct. Whether it was Dr. Hahn, Dr. Reddington, whether it was the female doctor that there is at the White House. I can't recall her name.
Burks.
Burks.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, Dr. Burks. And some of the others. I think some of them truly were trying to help. But as we were discussing before we came on the show tonight, one of the things I found especially troubling was when we would try and be working and prepping for media events, and we would hear one set of information in the discussions and as we did the murder boards and everything. Then when they hit the media, and depending on which show they went on to, whether it was CNN or MSNBC or whoever, when they went out there, we heard something completely different. Or they would go on to programs that weren't going to ask them, pertinent questions, and we're only going to have them on in order to try and attack the administration and nothing else. And they go on and say something that was clearly wrong and clearly not something that was going to be helpful to public health. It was strictly in hindsight, especially politically bent in ways that were definitely troublesome.
To push a narrative. They wanted to push some narrative of the day.
To push a narrative. Yes, correct.
And that's what's like, so just call me common man, right? And that's what's so interesting and confusing, because if it was anybody else, there'd be accountability. Now, Troy just, said everyone that talked on the subject or brought it forth is now vindicated. Well, kind of, but there's no justice. right? So
the correction is always on the 4th page or the 5th page, right?
Right.
It's never on the
But
first
there's
page.
but there's no justice. Like, it's not even like there's no justice. You know, I'm pretty sure I said this on the show a couple weeks ago. I know I said it at lunch today, but Barry Bonds, you know, like, was perceived to have lied to Congress and was convicted. And we're talking about steroids in baseball. You know, the fact that our Congress got involved in conversations about performance enhancing drugs in a sport is completely asinine to me. I like that. That's government overreach at its greatest. But where are the consequences? Where's the accountability? If you're like a public official and you lie to Congress, how come there's no punishment? Now, there was a young sailor, or I think it was a sailor, that took a picture of himself, a selfie, and in the background was a submarine a couple years ago. I think you guys could probably, remember this. Rob, will probably find it here in seconds
it
flat.
was where he worked. He was in the sub, just took some pictures for his family.
And he took a selfie and he gets convicted, right? He gets like the whole like offset violation. They tear his ass up on it. But like, where's his justice? Oh, he got it. So where is the justice for everybody else for lying, for like sending information that's wrong to the American people, misleading, lying to Congress? I mean, like, there's no.
Well, think about General Flynn, right? Think about General Flynn. Think about people.
Holy shit.
Right? That like, they get on hatch acts and things like that.
Yeah.
Stuff that,
Well, General Flynn, in the end was vindicated. He probably could have handled the situation differently.
Well, he was, because President Trump did it. But same thing with Roger Stone. Same thing with Manafort, right? There were people that.
But it's like, you got the people that are supposed to be giving us. I mean, I remember, what was his name? Clapper sitting there testifying and just straight up, like, oh, we didn't do that. Yeah, we did that. No, we didn't do. Yeah, I can't. Yeah, we did that. It's like I felt like I was watching like the old Chappelle show, true Hollywood stories with, Charlie Murphy. Yeah, I put my foot on his couch. Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
I think what you're going to see is a diminished career coming up. There have been reports today that came out that the White House was actively looking to push Dr. Fauci aside. I think what they're looking for is the right narrative to appear where they can say, and I think this goes back to what Troy touched on, is how many people we have vaccinated. I think when we hit that magical 70% or something close to herd immunity levels, we can say, hey, the public health part of this, the heated part of this is over. Thank you, Dr. Fauci. Now you can go on to your retirement. We no longer need to worry about you. Yeah. So at that point, I think you're going to see an exit stage left.
Yeah, with a thank you.
Yeah. Oh, there'll be a gold. There'll be a gold watch. There'll be a gold watch.
Probably like the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll But it's interesting, right? That
I'm not being sarcastic when I say that either.
No, I mean, they've given it to people that definitely a lot less that don't even deserve it. But I think you're right. Well, if they're gonna, you start getting cast aside, you're done. You don't support. Like, you're not there to support the narrative. You're not in line. And all it's going to take is one of the president's handlers right now to realize that he's more of a liability than an asset. Because that's really all it does. You go from hero to zero in a second when the media turns on you and you start to become a liability for the public relations side. You, of anyone, knows that, Wolf, right, and what you do. So the question is, who will they bring in? Who's going to be the narrative? The message will be the new eyes, fresh eyes. We're at a turning point, like you talked about. We'll hit a herd immunity. We're at a turning point now. We're going to bring in a new person, even though this guy has been there for 30-something years in the same job.
Well, there's going to be a lot of damage control because Dr. Collins, who was the head of NIH, in effect, Fauci's boss, is also being found that, some of his communications were not really in line with what the now known science is, even though they may have had some ideas back then. So, and there's no really any appointees passed by Congress that are in positions of authority right now. There's acting people, like acting head of the FDA, acting people that are head of, say, ASPR or some of the other subcomponents of HHS. Those people are in place, but there are no appointees. And I'm going to make a prediction here. They have done that because they did not want to have an appointee in place starting to take the heat for those careerists or some of the others that were there during this time period of the last year as all this narrative begins to unravel. Because those people would have to take the heat for not being forthcoming and not doing investigations and not understand what's going on. So they're going to let this thing ride through, all this stuff to come out before they start putting people in place. They haven't even proposed some people for most of these positions. Let's see what really comes out.
Or now we'll start seeing names getting shortlisted. Like
I don't think anybody's going to step up to that. Do you want to step in as head of the NIH with all this going on? Do you want to be the head of the CDC right now?
No, not personally. No. But like, look what happened with the ATF. They left that place vacant deliberately on purpose. They left that seat vacant till they had a crisis. And then it's like on the back of this crisis, on the wings of a crisis, they bring in like their savior, they're like, and now we can push this guy through Congress because like we have a crisis, so we really need this spot filled. So like,
well, they've done it with DHS, right? But they put that guy out there, and now the appointed head of the border problem, right? The vice president, her office is now saying, no, it's on DHS. It's not us. We're not responsible for it. Like the president said, the VP is in charge of handling the border crisis, where they were 60-something days in, 70-something days in. Now her office is coming out saying, no, you got to talk to DHS.
Well, they can't go because of COVID.
Yeah, they can't.
So like that, even that excuse is running out.
They can in Texas because Texas went maskless and they're doing fine. So they could come to the border via Texas. Just don't go through like California because you can't do it. California still got COVID running crazy, only in their borders. But look, the reality is, anytime in any job, whether you're a chair, whether you're you are at the cabinet level or you're at the component level below or whatever, become a liability and you're getting tossed to the side in a heartbeat, right? Nobody is immune to that, and you got to be on the inner circle to get by that. But Fauci is these emails are gonna do him in. Will he leave? Will his legacy be this 35-year civil servant that has done all these great things, or will it be defined by the last 14 months and 10,000 emails? And I think it's going to be the latter. I think he's going to go down as a disgrace.
But he won't, because you had an FBI agent like actively trying to like ruin the presidency. You saw collusion within federal agencies to diminish a presidency, and nothing happened.
But I think for Fauci,
like zero.
But everyone wasn't affected by that.
What are they going to do to him? Nothing.
Everyone wasn't affected by that. Everyone's affected by the things that Fauci said and put out. Everyone's jobs, masks, the kids, families dying in nursing homes without being able to visit, all because of kids passing out on a track because they had to wear a mask, when now we're finding out it's less than one. So all the entire country, if not the world, but the entire country has been affected by the things. I mean, Fauci was changing markets like he was, the head of, the SEC or something. He spoke and the markets changed. So he had some damaging effects over the last 14 months. And I think it could, Toby, because no one knows an FBI guy they heard about on the news, but everyone was affected by this dude. Jobs were lost. Lives, people took their own lives. I mean, it's just wide.
Businesses were destroyed.
Yeah. But
but I don't have any faith or confidence, and I have not seen any demonstration of any attempt to have accountability.
No, I agree. Unless it's lawsuits or whatever.
Not yet. Yeah. Not yet. I think you'll probably see Dr. Rand Paul come up with some stuff. I think he may make some motion.
He's calling for the firing. I mean,
he's out now
Senator
calling
Paul,
him. He's now
Dr.
calling
Paul.
for him to come back to him, and Jim Jordan are calling for Fauci to come back and testify about the emails. Now they're putting him in the seat.
Well, if you recall, let's go back a year.
But you
let's
put him
go
in the
back a
seat,
year.
but that doesn't do I mean, what isn't happening? They've proven that he's like perjured himself, right? They straight up have proven that the guy has perjured himself. Calling him back to what? Like they're just gonna rub it in his face again?
Yeah.
But there's no accountability. So it's like, where is the line drawn? Because now anyone can go to Congress and say whatever they want.
What's the statute? I don't know. I'm not sure. Rob may find out. What's the statute of limitations? Let's say in 22, the House and Senate flip, and the committee chairs all flip. Can they go back and go, yeah, he perjured himself. We're opening it back up and we're filing charges like they did Barry Bonds. Like we're going after this and we're recommending charges because he perjured himself, because now the Dems won't be in charge, assuming they continue to protect Fauci or don't pursue these charges. I don't know what those are, but
I don't think anybody's got the stomach for anything like that. I think what's going to happen is they're going to let him rest on his previous 35 years as a public health servant and let that go. Say, stay out of it. However, I'm making another prediction. This is my opinion. Knowing Dr. Fauci, I don't think he can help himself. I just saw that he was on MSNBC tonight trying to do damage control when he should be silent. He should be letting other people do that damage control.
Well, he does have a book coming out. He does have a book coming out.
You got to
do that book tour.
Book's going to be very gone. That book is gone. The books that are going to be written about him won't be by him. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I think even
Hillary's
Hillary's books
that.
on. I think Hillary's
I did
books
see
on
his
leadership
book got pulled from pre-sale.
Oh, did it?
Yes,
I did see that. His
Barnes
book got
and Noble
pulled from
and
pre-sale.
Amazon both pulled it from pre-sale.
Ooh, he's spinning in the dirt. I mean, that's not good. Hopefully he got advance.
When I say this, I don't mean just for him. I'm just, I'm mind blown that we allegedly have all these checks and balances, but we don't have any enforcement of it.
Right.
Whatsoever.
It's selective compliance, right? They select who they want to go after.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we just saw Tom Cotton, Senator Cotton, asking the ATF nominee, if he's going to prosecute, Hunter Biden, where they have irrefutable proof. Irrefutable proof of a felony.
Yeah.
Irrefutable proof.
That if you or I had filled that form out that way, we would definitely be going to jail.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, and that's like, we call them oversight committees and we call them, checks and balances, but are they that soft? I mean, is the presidency really what it is?
Because they don't have the checks and balances, because they're following whatever they're being told to do, support and not support. They're not being blind.
Like, are we no longer in a republic?
No.
I mean,
we lost checks and balances in 2008. We know that. They walked along. The Democratic-controlled houses, both upper and lower house, did whatever the President Obama said. Right. All that's left to be that is completely unbiased is the Supreme Court. And now what do the Dems do? They want to pack 4 more people on there. They want to turn it completely political. They want to make sure no stones are left unturned, where they can control everything. Because except for a couple new rogues, right? Here's the thing. These new young senators and Congress people of both parties, whether it's a Squad or it's the Boebert and Green and stuff like that, they aren't being controlled by their party. They're not following in line. They're doing what they want to do, right? We see the Squad doing the same thing on the left. That's the unknown, and is probably worrying both established parties. They cannot control these young people coming into Congress who are like, nope, I'm doing it my way. But if they can, everyone's going to march along and do what they tell them to do. Manchin is a holdout. Manchin has a lot of power. That dude's super influential. He can truly decide what he wants to. He really doesn't take threats well, obviously, right? But the others, they all go right in line, and they've been doing it since 2008.
Right, but there's no accountability for them either.
No.
I mean, we got Maxine Waters inciting violence.
Yep, totally no charges brought.
In fact, we were talking about this at lunch today. How can you represent a district you don't live in? Like, isn't that a requirement?
Yep. As far as I know.
Right. Maxine Waters doesn't live in her district and hasn't for like years.
She doesn't have
I dare say like a decade.
Like a little 1-bedroom apartment there. She calls that the house or what? She probably lives in D.C., I'm sure.
Right. No, she lives in D.C.
Like
but,
full time. Like she probably just barely goes back.
But she has a home, a house, a very nice one, as a matter of fact, outside of her district. Like we had, on the show, Joe Collins, that ran against her.
Right.
A Navy veteran, I believe. I could be wrong. I thought he was a Navy veteran. Young man of color, veteran of the armed forces, from Compton, living in Compton, going door to door, trying to make Compton a better place, and lost. Like, I don't even think he got 30% of the vote to someone that doesn't even live in the district. And there's no accountability. Like, they're like, oh, we're gonna censure her. We're gonna take her. Like, that didn't happen.
They just buy time. They make sure the media doesn't keep covering it. And
that Marjorie Taylor Greene or whatever her name is, like, they jammed her up like with the quickness. I mean, they stitched that chick up with, like, I don't even think she was in office a week when they stitched her up.
Yeah. Well, the young guy from the Carolinas that's in the wheelchair, they tried to go after him too. There was look. As I was telling somebody the other day, and Wolf knows this better than most. Someone is a threat when they attack them. If they leave them alone, ignore them, the one side doesn't, and it doesn't matter what side you're talking about, left or right. If they're a threat, they're going after them. That's how it's almost like that's your badge of honor. Like, oh, they're coming after me in social media. They're talking about me on The View. They're going after me everywhere. I must be making some difference. But it's really a badge of honor. If you're kind of benign, they're not wasting their time, energy, or effort on you. They're only going to go after those. That's why they go after Cruz, right? That's why they go after Cotton. That's why they're going after DeSantis, right? Because they see them as potential threats down there. It's the same reason why they went after the second impeachment for January 6th. Their whole reason was not to put Trump in jail, was to keep him from running in 2024. They said that. They admitted that clearly. That was the whole reason. They just wanted to get him convicted and impeached so they could keep him from ever running again. They're that worried about him. That's the reality. That's
I mean, here in Texas, they're so worried about elections that, like the Democrats, on the verge of, having to pass this bill, like, they walked out. They slipped out of the chamber and hid. Like, they called it a protest, but like they're like, well, we're not even going to play by the rules, like,
right.
And that's what's so frustrating is, like, the average person is sitting there watching, like, everyone having, it's like Al Sharpton. That dude gets on every television, gets on everything, and, like, causes all this trouble, gets to go to the White House, does all this shit. And, like, has he paid his back taxes yet?
No, I think so.
That dude's got more in back taxes than the majority of Americans will ever earn in a lifetime. Combined incomes of their entire households, to include their parents.
I want to roll this back for a second because at the start of this, John had mentioned ambulance chaser. I think it was you'd may use the term, and I wonder, now that we're seeing this stuff come out, now that not only, let's just spin it from Fauci for a second, but related, now that more and more people are coming to the theory or suspicion of something that President Trump was saying a year ago and was being labeled every bad thing in the book because he said it, that this could have leaked from the lab. This could have been a man-made thing. If China is found to be at fault and it's proven, I guess, on the world stage or whatever, and everyone's like, yep, it absolutely came from that. I mean, talk about, that's a big ambulance. I mean, the entire world would be open, right? Every single person that lost somebody in India, in America, in Canada, in Mexico, it doesn't matter. would have the ability. I mean, what could be done? I mean, as China as a country is, I don't know.
President Trump today said we need to get China to pay $10 trillion to, into the global economy. They need to, as a reparation or whatever you want to call it, penalty. They need to ante up $10 trillion for, causing this and not being part of the solution and being more of the problem than the solution.
That sounds like I'm trying to imagine what that lawyer's like, splitting it up. Okay, you get this much, you get this much.
It's like the 3M Ear Pro.
Have you lost your hearing? Were you deployed? Yeah.
No, a couple of years ago, I don't know if it's still a thing, but a couple of years ago, and I don't know if it was a scam or not, but wasn't there a group that were litigiously going after the country of Iran, and we're seeking some kind of settlement, for soldiers that were injured from Iranian technology, like EFPs, right?
Yeah.
They were going over those explosively formed discs that
right.
went on.
Yeah. The EFPs. Yeah. Now, was that a legit thing or was that a scam? Because that if it worked for if we can go after
I think
Iran,
I think they sued. I think
you can go after China.
I think they got awarded, but I mean they think it ruled in their favor, but Iran just gave them the big finger and said forget you, right? And I think China's not going to pay $10 trillion. They're not.
Well, they don't have money on the books. Iran only have pallets of it.
That's true.
Hangers.
That's true.
They don't actually have cash on the books.
But I mean, I'm just wondering how liable, will the world come together and stand as one against China? And then what does that mean on a security standpoint and a global safety standpoint and everything like that? I mean, imagine the whole world stands up shoulder to shoulder across from China. You need to make this right. China.
Oh, you mean
China said billions of
Paris
people.
Accord?
Well, billions of people and all these nukes, and they could be like, yeah, screw you. We don't think it's. I mean, look, what was it last summer? Australia. What was it Australia did? I know Rob will put it right. Australia said something about China. They kind of alluded that China was at fault for this. And China came out with a letter and said, how dare you say it? And we're cutting off all trade. And we're doing Australia did is hey, it's possible you guys could have leaked this. That should be looked at. And
let me posit something to you guys. I talked about privately with people last year about this time, and we were trying to figure out what was likely the event that catapulted. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and talk about it because I can talk about it with you guys, and they'll get me in trouble later.
Yeah, it's only us. Nobody else is listening.
Yeah, nobody. It's just the three of us right here between you and I and the fence post. You remember that they were trying to figure out was it bat caused? Was it a human to animal to human transmission? Was it a virus that somehow got loose in a lab that somebody got, from somebody else? I still believe that because of its proximity to the animal market that is 220 feet from the entrance of that building, that animal farm somehow got some animal from within that lab, and it was not planned, completely accidental. Somebody got rid. They said, hey, we need to get rid of these animals, these carcasses or whatever. Some poor janitor or some poor animal handler probably paying, 10 luan or yuan a week for his trouble, drag that animal over and say, look, there's nothing wrong with this thing. I'm going to go sell it over in that animal market for $20 or whatever, and have something to take home. They dragged what they thought was an innocuous carcass over that animal market and sold it there. I am somewhat convinced that is a potential possibility. Somebody tell me that isn't one, given the proximity, the poverty that's in the area, the proclivity of humans to do something completely stupid, even though they don't know what they're doing.
It essentially means both.
We've all been in markets. We've all been in markets around the world where we saw aid. We saw aid being sold.
Yeah.
Come on, if there's something that they can take to a market and sell, if they think there's any kind of financial value to it, they're going to sell. I mean, I found people selling our mail we like in a marketplace, people selling our mail.
We saw it in Korea. We saw it in Korea.
Yeah.
I saw it in Afghanistan, and you probably saw it in Iraq.
Slinky Boy's a real thing.
Yes.
You know.
but you're right. But you know what?
This is like, of course, this is feasible.
Yeah, and it meets both theories. Man-made in a lab. Oh, and it also came from a wet market. Yeah, because somebody took the freaking dead bat that came out of the lab, or maybe bats, and sold them over there for a couple extra won and said, hey, I got these for sale. Oh, thanks a lot. I can sell these too. And then some poor people freaking ate them or did whatever the hell they did with them. Yeah. It would meet both stories. So neither one could say, oh, we were totally wrong. Well, both were kind of right. Right?
Well, no, like I would be, last year, if I would have brought this out or talked about it publicly, I've been labeled, you are a batshit crazy conspiracy theorist.
No pun intended.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, no pun intended.
Solid, hypothesis here.
You would have been canceled by Facebook. Just saying. You would have been canceled. They would have banned you longer than Chuck Z.
Well, thanks, Wolf. We'll be talking to you sometime in 2025. So, good luck.
No, that's what's like so I can't even speak tonight. Preposterous. Anyway,
that's what's crazy.
Drink more, Toby. Drink more.
Yeah, I need to. I like it. There's something wrong with my voice tonight and everything. That's what's so preposterous about all of this. Like the fact that you can't even hypothesize a totally legitimate thing. I mean, I've seen some Asian wet markets in my day. I've seen some dry markets in my day in Asia. There's nothing wild and crazy to think that somebody working nearby, and who cares that it's only like 400 meters? It could have been like 4 miles away. Like, it is not crazy. And to paint the picture that just the concept, the thinking of the concept is like mental deficiency is ridiculous. It is not crazy to think that there is some kind of accidental contact, incidental contact, between a lab in the general geographic region and a marketplace, or just humans. Some dad working at the lab had it brushed up on his lab coat. It didn't decontaminate the way they was supposed to, or he didn't go through the chamber, or whatever it might be. And it, rubbed up on his daughter's school bag, and his daughter took her school bag to school and rubbed up against.
It could have been some kids dumpster diving and then took them over to the market to make a few bucks because they don't have anything, right? They could have said, look at these. We can sell them over at the market.
Well, guys, as I go back to that Vanity Fair article, because if you haven't read it, you really need to take the time and read this article, because it's in the latest specific. Huh?
It's on the website or on the latest issue?
Yeah, no, it's Vanity Fair. It's on the website. What they talked about was the Wuhan Institute didn't have its level 4 facility set up until very late. I want to say it was like late 2019. So they were operating on a level 2 or a level 3, which they described it as basically a dentist's office level of, hygienic conditions. So they really didn't even have fully set up protective gear like you would think a deadly virus like SARS or COVID
with containment zones and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
And they say those are typically handled by a level 4 type of lab, and they were operating under level 2 and level 3 for most of its existence. So tell me that there wasn't a possibility of some incidental contamination.
Yeah.
I don't believe there was anything deliberate. I really do not think this was some contrived thing by the Chinese to start some global thing, because that stuff, as we both know, serving in the military, chemical weapons can come back and haunt the guy that lets them out. So that's one genie you don't want to let out of the bottle.
And it's interesting you say that, because Fauci was on, I want to say yesterday, when he was questioned about this, and he used that scenario. It was like, when they were saying, don't you think it was developed by that? He was like, are you saying the Chinese released this? The China people, they released this to kill their own people and kill the whole world? That's crazy for you to even think such a thing. No, it's not what we're saying, right? No one said, but he took it to that extreme that which would be something that you wouldn't think any country or government.
Well, he's trying to control the narrative. He's
right.
trying to throw it back at them and say, well, by making it
so
and making
crazy.
you sound preposterous,
right.
it debunks your idea and the way you're describing it. That's not where you went with it.
Right.
He took it there to make you look ridiculous.
That's what I'm saying. Exactly what he said. You're saying they did that just to kill all their own people and kill everyone else? No, that was never the question. It was never the accusation. It was that it was being developed possibly or partially because of NIH was giving funding for them to take these viruses, amp them up and take them out of animals to study them and do whatever and all that kind of stuff. And it got out because of bad practices, ill discipline, laziness. Who knows why? We will never know why. I don't think, because I believe like you, John. I don't think that it was something done on purpose. I think it was just bad, policy, process, no safety measures in place, and the shit got out.
Like, we're one of the few countries in the world that have building codes.
Right. See that every time an earthquake happens.
Right. So we get stuck in our heads about, well, this would never happen here. Well, there's a reason why it doesn't happen here. It's because we have building codes.
Yeah.
Oh, and why were we funding a lab in another country to do research, perhaps similarly? It's because we didn't want it here.
Yeah.
Oh, and if you think other countries aren't developing shit in terms of weaponry, you think we're the only people that build nuclear submarines? Like, you think we're the only people just because we entered the Geneva Convention and said that we would not do biological weapons doesn't mean that somebody else isn't.
Right.
There's
a reason why there's a reason why in the early 2000s and the start of global war on terror that some of these CIA prisons were in other countries, not here. It's not an American thing. Yeah. That interrogation's happening somewhere else, right? Same thing. You want to mess with this virus and play with it and try to amp it up? That's a great idea. Here's some money. Keep it over there. Give us the report when you're done, right? Like you said, we don't want that here.
Yeah. But we openly, I believe that's why under oath, Dr. Fauci even said, that we gave money so that this stuff would not be researched on our soil. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure if he didn't directly say that, he alluded that. At least saying one of the reasons why we provide funding to such things is so that it doesn't happen here.
Well, I think
because of safety concerns of it hitting our population. So if we have concerns about it leaking in what we have standards in terms of building practices and scientific, if we're worried about it happening here, we farmed it out to a place where we're there's zero oversight, zero building codes. You saw
they probably didn't have an eye wash station. They probably didn't have that little eye wash station.
No, they don't have. They don't even have OSHA. They don't even have OSHA. We have OSHA. No, that's one of the things that cracks me up. I remember looking at buildings being built, and I'm not just saying in Iraq.
Bamboo scaffoldings tied up with vines.
Yes, and then pouring concrete, and instead of there being forms, but they would have bamboo stilts holding up concrete levels. They would pour second, third, and fourth floor and roofs, and it would be held up with wooden poles. The stupidest practice. What we would consider unsafe, moderately dangerous.
Darwin Awards live strong in third world countries. Yeah.
How many dudes got zapped? Stealing electricity because they would just tie into the power line.
Back and forth over the street. Yeah, everywhere. Absolutely. Yeah. My first room in Afghanistan, I would lay in my bed at night and look up, and half a concrete bag, I forget the name of the company, some Middle Eastern company, half the bag was decoration in the ceiling because they just dumped the entire bag in the mix. They mixed it all up, and when they made the ceiling of my room, I looked up, half the bag hung out of the concrete. It looked like some bad video game where like you're partially stuck inside of something and stuck out of something. And it was like Lucky Star concrete made in Pakistan or something. It was something along that. And I would look at it and just think, I hope this building, if a rocket ever comes in, I hope this holds back, because like I was obviously looking at very poor construction standards, you know, and like you said, it can be, China can have millions of dollars and billions of people, but that doesn't mean that they don't have OSHA, they don't have building codes, and they don't have safety measures or anything else like that. So it doesn't matter if it's them or if it's in Haiti. It's still, I think our president said at one time, shithole. That's what it is, right?
But just to kind of go back a little bit, it actually scares me, because as this is unraveling, it scares me to find out what we're going to find out. Like how much more are we going to learn? You know, like,
a lot more. There will be a lot more coming out. I promise.
The wolf always like words of positivity.
Yes, nothing but optimism. A lot more that isn't public yet, but it will be.
Yeah. Well, you know, like,
think about all the action movies, right? The guy, you know, that whether they fly up to the asteroid to blow it up or do this, you know, the hero always saves at the last minute, and the world never knows that person just saved the world.
Well, one of the things that we had to continuously worry about, or be wary of, whatever you want to call it, while we're there, is we understood that every single email, I don't care if I'm exchanging the menu for lunch that day with somebody, but every single email that we wrote was likely to be FOIA'd, or was subject to being FOIA'd. I'm sure that there are journalists who have lined up trying to FOIA and gain access to every email from the heads of all those HHS doctors as they were going back and forth. I can assure you that they were thinking that they're going to find something. And they will definitely find something if they dig down a few levels below the heads. If they get down into those that weren't the heads of the departments and those that were working for them, they will find them. I guarantee you.
They will find blunt, honest, open communication.
They will find the blunt, honest exchanges between people openly, thinking that they are immune or they will not be the subject of those FOIAs. They don't need to go after the assistant secretaries or even the deputies. They need to start looking at the ones where the GS-15s and the 14s down there, and those scientists, they need to go take a look at those. That's where it's going to be found.
And what do you predict, if you could say what they're going to find? They're going to find corruption. They're going to find knowledge of how bad this was, or knowledge of all the stuff that we were told is going to save us, and
collusion.
Collusion.
No, I think what
hydroxychloroquine was actually the savior that no one wanted to do. I mean, what would they find?
I think what they'll find is what is being discussed, or what is the information that's being shared is, you know what, this is what really the truth is. This is what the science really is. This is what we do know. This is where it came from. That doesn't always, as you know, doesn't always percolate up to the general. The general doesn't always get all that information, right. But I guarantee you there is a sergeant first class or a sergeant down there somewhere in those platoons that does have that information. Yeah. You guarantee it.
There's a major somewhere that filtered that, didn't let it go up. They know that.
That's right. That is exactly right.
It got killed in some shop somewhere.
Yeah. It's but you hit it on. I mean, you hit it pretty good there, Wolf, and the fact that you know, that information, which is probably in there. That's going back to what Toby said at the start. That's what all the people wanted to know. They just wanted to know the facts, right? They didn't want an interpretation of it. They didn't want to think someone's opinion or what one party thought of it. They just wanted the facts and let people make up their own minds. And that's going to piss off. People already hate Congress. They already hate the government, everything else like that, right? It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, right? Whether you're Antifa or you're Proud Boys, everybody hates the government and hates all that and hates politicians. This is just going to make it that much worse, in my opinion.
I'm going to move from the political sphere, and I'm going to go over and be a used car salesman. I'll be far more appreciated.
No one ever would have said appreciated and used car salesman in the same sentence. So that's
no. Well, but if you would, again, comparing it against Congress and some of those guys, you would get it.
Yeah, well, you know, there's some really nice used car lots surrounding some of the larger military bases that I wouldn't mind working at.
Well, right now, used cars are a hot commodity. Dealerships are paying top over what they're worth to get cars from people. They are somehow like plywood and apparently beef.
Well, that's with the microchip deal, right? So like, they can't get the microchips, right? They can't get the chips for the new vehicles. So like, there's no new vehicles rolling off the assembly lines because they don't have the chips.
Oh.
So, and
that's right. Ford has parked a whole bunch of trucks outside his plants because they don't have enough chips to get them fully assembled.
Yeah, no, like, so like this issue with the chips, like a lot of these things are, the little nuance of it. So like they're all produced over in China, and like China's like, we're gonna hold those back until we get the compliance that we want on this other subject taken care of. In terms of like plywood and lumber, I mean, as Canada, right? A guy from a little town called Terrace, British Columbia, some of the best soft lumber in the world, loving these prices. Like my town's in a recovery. I'm excited for them. If they could ever get out of COVID, things are going to be good. Families are going to be fed. Fortunes are going to be made, because fortunes were lost due to this little thing called NAFTA a couple of years ago. So like it's going to even the playing field. So all about that. But then it's like, oh, like, let's throw some tariffs on some shit. Like, is now the time?
Well, can they even get it across the border? I mean, I thought a big deal. The reason the cost of lumber was it was a supply system. They can't get it across the border.
It's the the building demand, and then they threw some tariffs on it. It's like to the moon. Like a 2x4 when I was a kid was worth like, I don't even think it was worth 30 cents. Right? Like I built like the most badass forts when I was a kid, because like, you could like go down to the lumber yard, the co-op or whatever, and you could get 4 or 5, 2x4s and ride your skateboard home or your mountain bike home, and like build away. Heaven forbid, you had a family member with a truck that was willing to throw a couple in there when you were doing some grocery shopping. But like, like now that 2x4 is worth $10.
Hey
guys, can I hijack your conversation here? There's breaking news here from the New York Times.
Oh,
breaking news from the New York Times. The government has officially released a document that finds no evidence of UFOs. Just came out in the New York Times. All these things, people talking about alien spacecraft and all that stuff. You've seen it.
Like all the
everybody's
videos.
been talking about it.
Yeah, right. It's on Drudge right now. Yeah. No evidence.
There is no evidence of UFOs.
That's right up there. We're from the government. We're here to help. I mean, that's.
There's something about like every week a new video comes out.
Can we just get a few of those pilots in front of Congress? Something tells me if you get some of those pilots up there that were like dropping F-bombs when they were watching this stuff, they would probably have something a little bit different to say.
Yeah.
But then it's you're right. That story's out there.
Just released in the last 20 minutes or so.
I would think the government would want to say that. I think distract people from what's going on. But like, yep, there were UFOs. We're talking to them, like that would like swing everyone that way, right?
So what are they like? So let's dive into this real fast. Let's just dive into this real fast. Was it last week that 60 Minutes was focused on UFOs?
1 or 2 weeks. I think it was 2 weeks ago.
Right.
Ago, yeah.
So this was actually one of my talking points last week. We never got to it. 60 Minutes is one of the more reputable news shows throughout time. Right?
We won't get into that debate here, but go ahead.
But no, like it's one of the longest running. It's kind of like PBS's Frontline. Like 60 Minutes and Dateline and Frontline have been around, throughout the years, and for the most part, have been, reputable media offerings, news media offerings, where they kind of dive in and explore and investigate more than a quick little soundbite, on the evening news. Like that's like their news magazines, they dive into it. And that's where some really good journalists have cut their teeth, right? I mean,
well, unless you're Dan Rather talking about, you know, some certain books and stuff that he got a hold of.
Right. So there's that. But for the most part, like that's you could argue that they're a news institution, a media institution, right? They took on UFOs. In the past, UFO was like National Enquirer.
Right.
That was Star Magazine. True. Like that was like dime store.
Weekly World News and the Bat Baby
it was like
UFOs.
That was, you know, like cannon fodder for like people next to the soap opera digest, right? And the fact that 60 Minutes took it on gave it some validity.
Oh, absolutely.
Gave it some validity with all the things that they could be covering right now. They dove into this because there's a lot of evidence, especially visual evidence coming out. There's lots of testimony and anecdotal evidence. It's hard to say scientific evidence, you know, because like, you know, we haven't, I don't know if there's trace particles in the air or something like that they've been able to measure or capture or whatever. But like you got, you know, reputable news source doing an investigative dive into the release of these things. They've given it some validity. You had the former, you know, Deputy Secretary of Defense, or Undersecretary of Defense to Cohen, and a guy that's been around for a minute on, I got to look his name up. He was just on Joe Rogan a couple of weeks ago, speaking specifically about this, like a senior level government official, like going, yeah, on the record, yeah, we got this, we've got that. I wouldn't be surprised if this isn't Randy Quaid, you know, like, you know, talking about
anal probes and things like that.
Talking about anal probes, you know, like, no, like these are reputable people. And
that was my favorite South Park episode.
You know, like, and so it's crazy that all of a sudden, like, ooh, well, we better kibosh that. Like you're okay with like letting us know about killer hornets or whatever they were, murder hornets. Like now you're scared, like things actually flying around, like might be on it. Like I don't know. That's why people just don't have faith, because again, you know, people go, they do this dive, they learn, they get this information, they see this evidence, and it's like, no, the sky is green. It's not blue.
Yeah. It just makes people distrust the government that much more. It's like, it would be different if they were old gray. It's like, you know, the stuff you see of like Bigfoot, like someone sees it, some dude walking, they're like, that's it. You know, this is stuff that's coming out like from naval ships in the last year, from pilots in the last year, where they're talking, and it's validated. And the Pentagon said, yep, that's valid. That's really off an F-18 Hornet.
Multiple sources.
Right. And, watch this thing go into the sea and disappear, never crash, never
Four
nothing.
separate pilots witnessing it.
And the government says, like you said, nope, sky's green. You're totally wrong. Trust us. Yeah.
This is not the crisis we want you to see. Yeah. This is not the crisis.
Maybe they're saving that one in their back pocket. I mean, something else bad, some scandal happens. They're like, there's UFOs. We were totally messing with you.
What was the article that followed that in the New York Times? Like, was it something on the border? Like, hey, we got to put this truthful story out there. So let's put something really ridiculous in front of it, like to take everyone's eyes off of it.
Yeah, that was something. Well, hey, we covered a lot of things tonight. We're wrapping about an hour 17 in. Is there, Toby, is there anything else you wanted to hit on? Well, we got Wolf on tonight. Like, I mean, he's a world of knowledge here in this area.
I know, like, I feel bad because we kind of got hung up on some other things, and, you know, but no, on one hand, I'm relieved that some of this stuff is coming out, because, you know, I hope the rest of humanity want to continue to be on this planet a little bit longer. You know, I want to see my daughters and my sons, you know, grow up. Well, they are kind of growing up, but, you know, like to go on and do great things. I want to witness that. And I got to watch, one graduate, a couple days ago, and, to sit outdoors, with all our family and to celebrate in that moment, and for her to actually be able to do that, where last year, like, the kids weren't able to do that, for us to, like, have fellowship and go eat a meal together, where, like, a couple months ago, that might have been unheard of for a group of that large to all break bread together indoors, not in, some under the cover of darkness, black arts way, so I'm happy that we're learning that this isn't as scary as it was projected, but it's also frustrating because why did they paint it to be so bad? Like, what was their motivation? And if the leadership of this country, regardless of party affiliation, regardless of administration, are trying to, like, manage by fear, like, and there's no accountability, like, that's scary and it's frustrating, but I digress.
Yeah. Wolf, any final words from you? Anything you want to leave our listeners and viewers to think about or consider?
I would very much like to see or hear from your listeners and your viewers out there. I'd like to know what they're thinking. If you could share that with me at some point, of any interesting comments or questions, I'd love to address them. But I'm just glad that this is finally moving. We're moving beyond this, that people should really look at, they don't need the masks. I'm very sorry to see that there are so many businesses out there that are forcing and requiring their employees to wear a mask. For what end, I do not know. I do not understand this. Even the government, as much as we distrust it, is saying you really don't need a mask. So why are they forcing their employees to do that? I implore you, if you've got a business out there, drop the mask requirement. If the person wants to because that's more comfortable for them, that's fine. They can do that anytime, anyway. But don't make it a requirement. Don't force it upon them. And also, go back to your houses of worship. Go back to your local businesses. Let's open this economy up. Let's make it America again. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah,
Amen.
Absolutely. I mean, as I look back over this last year and all that and everything that's coming out now from Fauci and all that stuff, I guess the two big takeaways I have are, what a shame that so many people lost their lives over the last year and their loved ones couldn't be with them and they couldn't share those final moments because of some belief or false narrative put out that you could not be there. You could not separate. You were too much of a risk, right? I still can't fathom what it'd be like to have a loved one, a life partner for life, die in a hospital alone, and you couldn't be there to hold their hand and be there because they said, well, it's not safe for you, even though you'd be willing to put on 15 levels of PPE, right? So I think that and the lost businesses. I mean, yes, the economy was doing great, but the economy goes up and down. But small business owners, something you know very well, Toby, I mean, that put their life savings in their life in it to watch their businesses just evaporate in the last year. And unlike the big corporations who can just like shut down offices, turn things back up, right? You can't recover from that. And a few extra $100 and a couple stimulus checks ain't going to do it. But to me, that's the biggest crime that has happened over this last year. But I can tell you what's not a crime, and that's next week's show.
Oh,
because it's you like that segue? Because
a crime might be committed.
It might be next week, Tuesday night, not Thursday night. Tuesday night, Stu and the Nunn together in studio, Southern Studio. We will be together. So next Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Toby and Troy.
7 p.m. Central.
7 p.m. Central. I guess that would be 5 p.m. Pacific. We will be together. Stu and the Nunn. Our people, our listeners and viewers love it when we're hanging out together, and we do too. And we break bread. We have a good time. We fellowship, and looking forward to it. So mark your calendars. Next Tuesday, 8 o'clock Eastern, will be the next show, and we are very much looking forward to it. So. With that, Wolf, thank you so much for coming on. Your third appearance in this year.
Got to get him to that Alec Baldwin level. We got to get him to that Alec Baldwin level.
I mean, he's creeping up on Shard and Bells and Bellavia. I mean, both of those guys are up there. But
he's getting there with Doc Simpson too.
He's up there with Doc Simpson, yes.
Yeah.
And all that. So thank you so much, John. We appreciate you coming on, buddy. and appreciate your insight, dude, and just you're not just someone with opinions and hot air. I mean, you've been there, you've been in the inner circle, and I think that lends a lot of credence and validity to your words, and I appreciate you giving us some time tonight.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. See you soon.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. 8 o'clock Tuesday night. Next week is your show. Be sure to tune in, and we wish you guys all a great night. Well, that wraps up another episode of the Stu and the Nunn Show, and we hope you had as much fun listening to it as we did hosting it for you. Don't forget to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. You can find all these links at stewandthenunn.com. We will talk to you again next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. Also, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Commodity Outdoors, Veteran Outdoors, Enlisted 9 Fight Company, Warrior Media Solutions, and BooHammer.com. Thank you again, and have a good night.